to this very important panel discussion, the role of technology and innovation to revive MICE and emergence of new models, changing dynamics. Well, friends, we all know that MICE industry is in turmoil today. Last 6 months have created havoc for our industry professionals all across the world. Events, exhibitions, conferences, everything has come to a standstill. The business tourism is widely affected because of travel restrictions. Because of this pandemic, it is time to think of new models. It is time that technology and innovation comes to the foreplay and takes the lead in terms of driving our future ahead. Today, we have a highly distinguished panel of speakers who have come from all across the globe to share their words of wisdom with us and enlighten our attendees on this very significant topic. May I please introduce our speakers who are panel with us today. Before that, I would like to ask our attendees to please use the chat box to connect with each other, ask questions, and also take out time to visit the speakers lounge. We have a speakers lounge in this platform where you can connect with the speakers, ask your questions according to the sessions that have happened in the event, and then probably we'll ask our speakers. In fact, we'll request them to come and answer some of the questions. So with this, I'd like to introduce our speakers for this session. I'd like to welcome Mr. Yogesh Mudras, Managing Director, Informa Markets India. I'd like to welcome Mr. Mark Cochrane, Regional Manager, Asia Pacific, UFI. I'd like to welcome Mr. Manish Chandak, President and CEO of Untitled. I'd like to welcome Mr. Chandraman Sharmani, MD of Alcor Network Travel and Conferences, Mr. Kiran Bhandari, who is the Director of India Office, Dubai Business Events, Ms. Carla Jaguel, CEO of M.I.C.E Marketing, and Mr. Richard Ireland, Vice President, Professional Development, Seychelles, and MD Clarion Events Asia. With this, I'd like to thank all our speakers who have taken time to attend this session, to deliberate and discuss on the way ahead on this very important topic. I'd like to start with Mr. Mark Cochrane and understand what is the scenario of live events industry in Asia, and has he attended some of the events after the pandemic struck the whole world, and what is his take on the situation right now? Over to you, Mark.
Thanks, Raghav, and thanks for the invitation to be here today. Okay, so the situation around the region, not particularly positive at this point. There are some markets that have gotten back to business. I think the one most successfully so far is China, and sort of ramping up by June, they restarted events, and there have been some really very big ones in key markets like Shenzhen and Shanghai. And even now in the second and third tier cities, they're going ahead with both B2B and B2C events. So I would say China is the exception. Other markets that have at least restarted events to some degree, Malaysia, Thailand, Taiwan, but to a greater or lesser degree, those events often, if they're B2B exhibitions, they depend on international participation, and obviously that's not there. But they have B2C events that are going ahead, and they have domestically focused B2B events that are going ahead. Japan and Korea, tentatively, they've done a few events, but not nearly to the level that China or even in Southeast Asia. So that's it really in terms of exhibition activity. In terms of events that I've been to, I've been stuck in Hong Kong since March, so no travel like all of us since then. And I've been to one event. I went to a B2C wedding event in Hong Kong in, I think it was in late May. And that was before the Hong Kong government then stopped events again. But it was positive in that you saw everybody coming together, the venue, the organizer, the exhibitors and visitors, all following the protocol that they put in place to make the event happen. None of it really surprising. I mean, lots of temperature checks, lots of hand sanitizer stations, social spacing at the registration desk, extra cleaning crews going around, but that's really what we're going to have to do to get the confidence back. And my understanding is in all of the other markets that they're more or less following those protocol. So I'm happy to get into more detail on any of those markets, but that's what we're seeing right now.
Thank you for opening up and for your important updates, regional updates coming from Asia. And I'd like to invite Mr. Richard Ireland, and I'd like to understand what is his take on how the MICE industry is shaping up and how the new models are emerging. What is his comments on this new emergence of new situations for the MICE industry at the moment?
Thank you for inviting me. Emerging business models, primarily engagement via virtual and hybrid, have already started in the absence of live events, with the continued travel restrictions and restrictions in scale and size. And I'm representing SACIOS today, and we're collaborating with the Singapore Tourism Board and Enterprise Singapore, and we're formulating this industry resilience roadmap, which is a public-private partnership focusing on 3 areas. The first is the safe resumption of live events. The second is creating agile business models with a focus on digital capabilities. And the third one is helping people in their professional development post-COVID-19. So I think the very first point, at SACIOS, we think there will be emergence of new business models, primarily out of necessity. Now, whether these new emerging business models gain traction long-term depends on the pace of recovery and what form that it takes. Will the recovery be country-specific? Will it be regional? And finally, will it be global? And at what time? And secondly, and perhaps more importantly, what will the level of the user experience these virtual and hybrid events have? In the absence of live, however, customers' options are a little bit limited. And I think that is forcing innovation, and it is forcing organisers to connect their customers with their customers. I think, so the model's evolving and the tech's evolving. How successful? We'll wait and see. The good news for organisers of live events, that certainly none of my customers are saying, we're not looking forward to the resumption of live events, and we see that digital is going to take over. But in the meantime, I think it's a matter of engaging digitally because that's all that's really available in many of the markets that we operate.
Well, thank you, Richard, for those important and significant updates. And you made some very valid points that going forward, virtual is going to play an important role. I'd like to come to Mr. Kiran Bhandari, and I'd like to understand what is the scenario, because Dubai has been a significant player in terms of MICE and business travel and tourism. What is Dubai's take on evolving and for the growth of MICE going forward?
Let me answer that question by stepping back a bit and say that, first of all, for any destination right now, safety of their locals and residents is of paramount importance. Whenever we open ourselves to international visitors, we want to make sure that our locals and residents are equally safe, as well as to ensure the safety of the guests that are traveling from around from different parts of the world as well. So in context of all of that, of course, Dubai opened itself to international travel on the 7th of July. Prior to that, hotels were already open in Dubai. So we did see a lot of staycations. So our hotels were already used to handling guests and dealing with visitors as well. From the India market, we opened ourselves to travelers earlier this month. And starting September, we've also given a go-ahead to business and social events. So we've already laid down the protocols that need to be in place. What's most important, though, is there's a very exciting event that we did earlier this month, which was called AI Everything. And we tried to ensure that we put all the protocols and processes that we needed in place for that event, right from contactless thermal scanning to fumigation, of course, to live density monitoring, to putting stickers on the floor wherever we thought there might be extra queuing. We tried to do everything that we could that needs to ensure that we have a safe event, especially bearing in mind that we had government dignitaries, senior business leaders from around the world, everyone participating at that event, just to give confidence to the world that this is going to be the future of events. As I think Richard and Mark both said, we'll need to innovate at a time like this. Maybe live events may not start as quickly at the same pace or the same kind of volume that happened in the past, but I think Dubai is ready. And we've tried to put those protocols in place. And of course, it's going to evolve. I think everyone's going to learn from experience from around the world as well.
Absolutely. And this is the objective of this forum, to learn from the enlightened speakers. And with this, I'd like to move to Mr. Yogesh Mudras. And Mr. Mudras, we all know that Informa Markets is a leading player in the market in the entire world. And you have been leading the virtual events front in India, because we see your leadership in India. And you have also announced a virtual month. September is your virtual month, where you have a number of virtual events lined up. What are your comments, and how the things have changed for our industry, and is it good for us?
I think, as you mentioned, we have taken the lead in doing virtual events. As you know, where are we currently as a world situation? You just, I think all the esteemed speakers did say that. I think there's a pandemic going on. I think people are not talking anything about physical events, and it's all about customers at this point. So customers wanting to do business, and how do we talk to them? And I think that's what made us look at things a bit differently. And I'm sure many of the organizations have also started looking at that. I think it's new business models, as Richard mentioned. I think we want to be in a place where we want to interact with our customers, provide solutions for our customers, and what is a better way than going digital? And in fact, Informa Markets, as you all know, we were previously UBM, and this virtual events is not something new for us, really. We started doing virtual trade shows way back in the year 2010 and 11. We started with some of our technology virtual trade shows, and I think that was probably way before the time when we were probably not even having 4G technologies. So I think that, and people loved physical and they didn't want to, but now currently it's the people don't have a choice. People want to do business, and of course that's the reason we thought of coming out with virtual events. And very validly said, I think September for us is a B2B month of celebration of B2B events, because we have done quite a few of them, and we are in fact doing 6 virtual events in 6 different verticals. But having said that, I think I am personally, I would say the face-to-face is not going to go anywhere. Come the situation, let it come down a bit, let the pandemic recede, and I think face-to-face will be back with the storm, and I think that's the real way of doing business in the longer run. But of course, virtual will be there, because I think we will change the way we work, and I think we'll have to look at it alongside physical events even in the future. I think these are some of my initial thoughts.
Very well said, Mr. Mudras. And I'd like to go to Miss Carla. And Carla, you are a veteran in the industry in terms of training and hand-holding corporates and exhibitors and even the organizers. I'd like to understand from you, how do you see, from your perspective, the role of events, live events, and exhibitions shaping going forward and evolving going forward in the future?
Yeah, thank you very much, Raghav, for inviting me and for your question. Yes, I would like to point out my view in regard to trade fairs of the future. And I think we have to change our mindset. The present state of the exhibition industry requires a new mindset. We have to shape a new horizon. That's my opinion. Because there is not a single day without news about the economic downturn. And sometimes I hear the question, are the bright times over for the exhibition industry? And my answer is not at all. Trade fairs are able to overcome the present crises more powerful than ever. But I think there are some old concepts which might be obsolete in the future. And those ones, for example, which still focus on quantitative figures like numbers of exhibitors, numbers of visitors, or even sold square meters. In digital times, trade fairs are no longer only platforms for information about products and companies. They have to take over a new role, maybe the role of a scout for its respective industry, and they have to become an expert about news of future developments, topics, and business opportunities in regard to trade, science, sustainability, as well as research and development. That means a complete new role for trade fairs and, of course, for the organizers. And for this, of course, we might use the new technologies but about the new technologies, I will talk a little bit later, Raghav.
Thank you so much for your inputs, Carla. And I'd like to move to a gentleman who has been very actively organizing large-scale events, exhibitions, not just exhibitions, but conferences to a large extent for associations and for corporates. I'd like to understand from Mr. Chandan Mancharmani, what is his take on the situation, and how is he evolving his business model? Because we are into the business right away. So how are you doing it? How are you catching the fish at the moment, if I can say that?
Thank you, Raghav. The other panelists have said, yes, they have to have a new norms kind of a thing coming in. In my opinion, I'm sure with all of you will agree also with me, is that this COVID is going to stay for some time. Maybe what our in convention industry, which we do large association meetings, and even when the smaller meetings also, is we are looking at maybe not before 2021. So in the meantime, what we have done is, which is a demand of the industry also, where they don't want, the organization doesn't want to lose it out to kind of not holding that events which they have been doing it. Primarily, what they have been doing it, organizing these organizing these conferences and all that, to mainly was to educate their membership about the new developments and all that. So here we have been playing a role by having those virtual conferences now. We had a series of virtual conferences and the webinars also from different organizations, different associations, where basic purpose of them is to kind of educate the membership of the association through the virtual conferences. That is what exactly is going to happen maybe coming next 6 months, which we have a very good requirement for coming up and say till March next year for the virtual conferences. But simultaneously, we are moving into kind of hybrid events also. Now, during the last 1 week, the demand for, like, the government has been announcing, yes, they might open up the venues for a smaller gathering of 50 people or 100 people. So that demand of hybrid event also has started coming in, where the people are like to have their hybrid events for coming months. So that is what we are kind of now looking into, more of the virtual events for sessions and for the corporates at the moment.
Thank you, Mr. Chandan Mancharmani. And yes, there is some good news coming from India that government is allowing gatherings of 50 to 100 people, and things are moving slightly in the positive direction, but not so much for as compared to our other counterparts. So with this, I'd like to move to Mr. Mark and understand from him that since lockdown, what all exhibitions or live events has he attended, and what has been the element of technology that have been used there, and what are his comments on some useful technologies that may be significant for our industry.
Wow, okay, that's a lot. The events I've been to, like I said, I've really only been to one in Hong Kong when we had that brief window when they were restarting. I think I'd like to echo what Manesh and Richard said. It's a tough transition to go from where we were in Asia in exhibitions to start relying on technology. A lot of even the biggest organizers in the region, I don't think you'd classify as particularly tech savvy, you know, compared to some moving into the area like Alibaba or Tencent. And the issue, or I guess two key issues that I see that are going to hold us back in the COVID and post-COVID era is behavior. So the behavior of our stakeholders, that's the exhibitors and visitors, are they comfortable using online platforms? Are they going to transition to them? And then post-COVID, are they just going to revert to old behaviors? I don't think anybody really knows the answer to that, because there's a lot of moving pieces and it really depends on the industry that we're serving. You know, an event that maybe serves consumer electronics might be more tech savvy than industrial machinery, for example. So it's certainly not going to be uniform across B2B exhibitions. The other issue I see is revenue model. So you can't you can't expect organizers to shift to digital if there's not going to be any revenues, or if it's going to be 10% of what they could do with a face-to-face event. So for me, there's some pretty big factors that are potentially holding back a transition to digital in the post-COVID era. I think it's exciting. I think there's a lot of investment and innovation happening now that's being forced by the situation we're in. But what it actually looks like 18 months from now, 2 years from now, it's really tough to say. And as I say, I think it's going to be pretty uneven across industries.
You made some very significant points, and picking up some cues from you regarding how prepared are we to adopt technology going forward, and can we monetize, and can we do it profitably? So I'd like to go to Mr. Yogesh Mudras to shed some light on both of these aspects, and give our attendees some clarity on whether technology can be used to monetize, and in what aspects can it help us going forward. You are on mute, Mr. Mudras.
Sorry. Yeah. Hi. Can you hear me now? Hello. Can you hear me now? Hello.
Yes, Mr. Mudras,
yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, so I think it's a very wide question. Really, can we monetize? I think there's so many ways we can use technology to monetize. I think, of course, as you know, I think with this the entire last 4 months, I think we have seen a splurge of webinars, e-conferences, virtual trade shows, virtual B2B meetings, virtual marketplaces, all having been taken place. And I think that there are quite a bit of it which is really being monetized in a way. Of course, if we really compare the monetization levels as compared to what we do in physical events, of course, there's a long way to go. Of course, people have started because I think if you see in digital space, there's a lot of offerings which are free of cost. And I think now people are getting used to paying it for if they see it's a valuable content, and of course content is really going to drive how you're going to monetize this thing. So I think be it conferences with webinars, virtual trade shows where we are able to bring in the really good buyers. I think of course the people would love to come and pay for that. And I think most of our virtual trade shows, we have seen quite a bit of monetization that has happened across, and people are adopting digital as a way of life. I think let's not just look at it as on a standalone basis of this events, that virtual events that we are doing. I think there's a lot of things which in technologies which we really can do, which can help us in future monetizations. I think first thing is some of the things which are happening on Internet of Things. I think it is a way of looking how we can create a perfect marriage between the physical and digital worlds. And there's a wealth of information on participants which really can be created by engaging and tracking their interactions with their digital devices. Also including virtual reality in your shows, in your events. I think there are some long-term benefits. I think I'm just not talking of doing virtual events. I'm talking of this technology is being adopted in our physical events in the future, which really have scope of monetization. Also looking at machine learning. In fact, machine learning, what I'm trying to say over here is a computer's ability to learn on its own by analyzing data. So I think if we are able to anticipate our customer needs by learning more what they are, in fact, what our customers want, in fact, it will be a great way to explore in our new conventions, event profiles, doing B2B matchmaking, using this artificial intelligence that we get. So there are a lot of such technologies which are available. I'm not talking just in this phase of pandemic. In fact, even later when we can use that, integrate that into our physical events, there's a way of getting that monetized really. So I think a lot can happen really. So I'm very positive about using digital across, not only in this time, but also later, once physical events get started again.
Absolutely, Mr. Mudras. And you mentioned very significant points that it's not just one dimensional aspect where we are talking about going virtual for our shows, but it's also more 360-degree where we adopt technology and innovations in matchmaking, in fixing up the right meetings for the right buyers, and in identifying the right people for our shows. And I see a trend that Alibaba and some B2B portals have started to organize their own shows. So maybe Mark can comment later on that. I'd like to move to Mr. Richard Ireland, and picking up cues from you, I'd like to understand what is his take on what all different innovations can be used going forward to grow our industry.
Thanks for the question. Before I sort of answer that question, a lot of meetings and a lot of people start is they talk about innovations, but they very quickly get onto the technology. What's the technology? And I think when I think about the innovation, I really think about what are our customers trying to achieve here? And I think the innovations that help our customers achieve what they're looking to do will be the ones that be most successful, whether that's an exhibitor or whether that's an attendee. And one of the great things about digital, this is really looking at the very positive, is the ability to get customer insights from many, many different contact points. So I think the first thing is we have to look at what are our customers looking to achieve. And exhibitions or physical or live does multiple things, but we've got to get to the heart of what is it. Is it meetings? Is it content? Is it transactions? And I think once we understand what that is, we will be able to create the product and then evaluate the technology. So I think that's the first point. I also think that, as Mark said, one of the challenges immediately from an organizer is about the scalability. But I think the scalability and the price points will come when customers get higher levels of return. So if we can meet their challenges, people will pay for more. Now, if they're saying, look, I don't want to invest in a webinar, and we give them a webinar, we'll get no money for it. But if they say, I'm also not traveling at the moment and I want an opportunity to meet my customers, and we can provide that format, we will find that that our customers will pay for that. The challenge immediately will be the scalability. But I think the key is really around customer first, technology second, is how I see it.
Absolutely, very well said. And picking up some cues from you, I'd like to go to Mr. Manish and understand from him. This is just an input coming to me. I mean, I just received information from my friend, my colleague in the industry, that the future will be the age of truth for events industry, because technology puts all into perspective, and anybody can see who all are the attendees, what are the numbers, and what is the traction. So technology can play a very important role, and probably Manish, you can give us some more insights as to how technology can help us. Mr. Manish, over to you.
Raghav, I don't think Manish is there. I think he's lost his connection.
Okay, I think yes, we've lost him. So probably we'll wait for him to come back, and once he joins, we'll take this question to him. I'd like to go to Mr. Kiran Bhandari. That's coincidentally, Kiran is there with us at the moment in the camera. Kiran, can you give us some updates as to Dubai, how Dubai is preparing itself to welcome business tourism back, to welcome the MICE industry back, and what steps is Dubai taking to ensure that it stays ahead of the curve in terms of being a leading destination for the MICE industry?
I think before I actually answer your question, I just want to carry on a point that both Yogesh and Richard talked about, and it really comes down to what is the purpose that each of these clients really have, right? And if we are able to identify their purpose, we're able to give them a solution which exactly meets their requirements. We were talking about exhibitions earlier, and we were talking about whether these exhibitions are profitable, whether there's a revenue model around them. I think the business model is going to get automatically corrected if we're able to correct the costs as well as the revenues that we are collecting. And virtual does allow us to do a lot of things differently as long as we core down on the purpose. Let's take an example. For example, we're talking about an exhibition and we're talking about hundreds of exhibitors. Maybe that's not going to work. But let's say, for example, we focused on one exhibitor and we talked about taking him to meet maybe the 100 clients or the 50 or 20 clients that were right for him through the same, through a virtual platform, using the expertise and the connections that we have, maybe the client is willing to pay for it, or maybe that exhibitor is willing to pay for it. So it's about adapting the right business model and finding the right solution, rather than just talking about virtual and live. I think it really comes down to purpose. Also, equally important is the fact that the kind of data that we're collecting through this entire exercise, right? I mean, we're able to measure impact and maximize that impact by analyzing this data correctly as well. Now, obviously, from a destination perspective, when you talk about what is Dubai doing, the first and foremost thing that we are trying to do, of course, is trying to make sure that we inspire confidence in the physical experience that you can have in Dubai, that you're safe, that you're healthy, and that you're taken care of. I think that's of paramount importance to us, to ensure that whatever we do, we don't compromise on the safety of our guests. And to that effect, we've laid down a fair bit of regulation. In fact, there's a detailed document, I'm happy to share that with you, that just came out a couple of days back. But I think the crux of it is minimizing contact. It's about ensuring physical distance. I don't want to use the word social distance because we are all social animals and we do want to engage, but we can still have social contact by having physical distance in place. And we're talking about a distance of 2 meters on each side. So per person space of 4 square meters. And there's no capacity on how many people can come in for an event, for example. So as long as we follow these right protocols, we ensure safety of the guests right from the touch point of where they're entering into Dubai, maybe even before getting on the aircraft from their respective countries, the experience on ground when they're getting off from the airport through immigration. And you would have seen the beautiful video that we put out just a few days back about the entire immigration experience in Dubai. The transfer, the movement to the hotel, all the hotels have innovated significantly and invested in ensuring that they give confidence to their clients. And of course, all the venues as well. You know, one last thing I do want to add to that is it's not just the in-event experience, it's the pre-event experience as well that's equally important. We can communicate a lot more now since we are a lot more open to technology, and so are our users, but also in terms of the setup. Let's say, for example, you're doing a setup in Dubai. Are we following the right protocols to ensure the safety of those people who are setting the event up as well? That's equally important as well. So we need to cover all aspects. And I think as a destination, working with the health authorities, working with the municipality, we've laid down a fair bit of protocols which will help us ensure maximize the safety and health of our guests as well.
Thank you, Kiran. And you rightly said that it's not just about at the event, but we have to use and ensure that we use technology and innovations effectively to connect before the event and after the event. So here's where technology can play an important role. And with this, I'd like to go to Ms. Carla and understand her views on digitalization, and whether, because she has been in touch with her clients, the organizers and the corporates from all over the world, how evolved are our audiences to use technology? How fastly can they adopt to the new models?
Yeah, Raghav. In regard to digitalization, I would like to take over the perspective of the exhibitors and look at a bigger picture. If trade fairs cannot offer more than the internet or other digital technologies do, I think they might lose their unique position within the modern marketing of the exhibitors, because the exhibitors, they balance the benefit of different marketing tools. They decide about the marketing budget, and last but not least, the budget of the exhibitors is the cash cow our industry is depending on. What do I mean? Today, comprehensive concepts are needed, what I said before, which allow exhibitors as well as visitors to look over the edge of the table and to recognize the new horizon and reclassify the marketing instrument trade fair. This is where I see the future. And I want to encourage all decision makers of the exhibition industry, I mean, organizers as well as associations, etc., to establish a new status with a wider horizon for trade fairs and to offer new benefits for everyone in the community. And what do I mean by new benefits? Well, despite of the fundamental benefits of trade fairs, which we know, like high quality conversations, building up confidence, meeting executives, experiences, products with all senses, this is all we know. I think in global and digital times like today, it is not enough. And it is also not enough to be number one in the world, like many exhibitions or trade fairs in Germany are. Based on the amount of participants and square meters, we need new concepts. And those new concepts are going into the direction of the benefit of the exhibitors and the mind change of the organizer, which I would like to explain later on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Carla. And I'd like to go to Mr. Chandar. Chandarji, you have been the vice chairman, the past vice chairman of India Convention Promotion Bureau. In this regard, can you give us some insights for the entire industry per se, in the Indian convention industry, the Indian MICE industry, because you work closely with ICA, the international body for the conventions as well. How evolved are we to use technology, and where all technology can be used in our industry going forward?
Is that know what exactly the technology has already set into, like when we plan a conference or a meeting in any of the hotels. The SOPs are in place already, where the role of a technology has already come in. When we are talking about SOPs, like when you check into a hotel, is in a paperless check-in. When you do a registration of the delegates, when they come in, earlier also technology was there, but now we have been using it on site actually. Now we can use it virtually, those technologies which is already there. If you look at the airport also, they like the person from Dubai was talking about, or we in India also have that kind of technology in place. As far the airports are concerned, where there is no boarding card, nothing, where you just straight away go in and check in and right up to the aircraft. There is no paper used. So one part, the technology has already come in actually. And then only thing is now, the moment we open or moment we do this hybrid events, this technology, which is already in place through SOPs, we're going to use it. The second technology, which what we have been talking, we have been educating our members also that how they use this technology while they are doing these virtual conferences. So that there's a second part of that technology, which we are using it through webinars or through virtual meetings. So there, not only were individually in every organization have to educate their own staff, the people who are handling the events, but then in general also, the whole industry, what the ICBB is trying to work on is to educate the members what kind of a technology they can use it, what kind of the areas which is required to implement those technologies to have the conferences. Areas like when we were talking about earlier the scientific organizations, or maybe the non-medical organizations doing their events. There also we have playing a role of having a kind of educating them on technology front, how they can use the technology once they do their event along with us. So it is playing a big role, technology is playing a big role, but then the good advantage is that with the government and ICBB has worked out so SOPs, which are already in place. The hotels have already adopted those technology. The airport authorities have already adopted the technology. That is a very good sign for us to use the technology for the virtual conferences.
Thank you, Mr. Chanda, for those comments. And yes, definitely, we have to handhold our clients how to best use technology going forward. And what better person to answer my next question than Mark himself, because he's a man of deep insights. I'd like to ask a question. He has to name. He has to name something here. Mark, according to you, what have been some of the better digital platforms of late, and what have been their best, some of their best features which have stood out in terms of their effectiveness? And also, if you can also mention some of the organizers who have taken a lead in this regard of using technology for their growth of their business.
Okay, thanks, Raghav. I don't know if I'd pick the best, because I don't want to be picking winners and losers, and I'm not a tech expert, but we're watching the space pretty closely. And for me, what's potentially most interesting is outside our industry itself. So that's non-event organizing companies like Alibaba, like Tencent. Both of them obviously giants in terms of e-commerce, and they've both been pretty active about trying to move into, you know, whatever term you want to use, online platform or virtual events. Tencent hosted the online version of the Canton Fair back in, I guess it was June. And through their cloud team, they're pretty actively marketing their online platform. And it's got a lot of, I guess, sort of, you'd say, like the standard elements of face-to-face events. So presentations, matchmaking, rooms for private discussions, live broadcasts. They've got exhibitor virtual booths and that sort of thing. Alibaba has been focusing on doing live streaming, which is, I think this is potentially the most interesting digital innovation for our space. So live streaming's been around for a while. Alibaba's been using it for their B2C business since 2014. And was it last year? I think it was last year they generated about $14 billion of sales through live streaming. Now, obviously, B2B events are very different. You're not going to get that. You're not going to get transactions like that, even through live streaming. But from what we've seen that Alibaba did back in June, around the same time as the Canton Fair, the live streaming was really interesting. So they left the live streaming to the exhibitors. They could come on, they could do product demonstrations, they could do product promotions. There was the option for live chat, for inquiry. And then when they were ready to, when a potential buyer, when a visitor was ready to go to maybe placing an order, then they would take it offline or outside the live streaming. So for me, I think that's probably one of the most exciting sub-segments of this innovation period through COVID. And it's really what I think Richard really hit on it. We have to ask ourselves, what are the objectives of our exhibitors and visitors? And if we give them what they don't want, you know, whether that's content or a Zoom webinar, if that's not what they're looking for, then it's going to fail. For me, ultimately, trade shows are about generating trade. So creating the ability to place orders between buyers and sellers is going to be key. And I think live streaming is probably the clearest path to that.
Very well said, Mark. And I'd like to move to Mr. Richard and understand from him whether the role of the virtual or technology will become a threat to our physical industry, and how can we make a fine balance of both so that it ensures our future growth.
I think the ultimate answer is if it can deliver a better ROI than physical, it might do so. But I don't think any of us probably on this call or in our industry are seeing that quite yet. But technology can move very, very, very quickly. Where I think there's an opportunity is as I said, our industry will open at different levels of pace in different geographies over the next, well, however many months. No one wants to put a timeline on it. So I think in the meantime, the use of virtual and hybrid are going to create very interesting models in the absence. Now, and where I think is that it's particularly interesting is those multiple digital contact points where customers are meeting their customers. If they're working, they will continue. Now, if there has ever been a very, very, very small criticism of the live business, is its duration. You know, it's typically 2 to 3 days. Now, it's a small criticism, but if events can continue over a longer period of time, that technology will be incorporated. I have no doubt about that. And certainly, you know, I like this hybrid thing where physical meets digital, where we're collecting different customer touch points, collecting different customer requirements, but ends up in a physical. And I think that will impact our industry popular. However, you know, if the ultimate digital experience is better, the customers will ultimately decide what happens.
Absolutely. And I'd like to move to Mr. Kiran and understand his take on this situation as to, because a lot of people do feel like Mr. Richard also clarified that a combination of both is required. But according to your perspective, how do we make sure that there's a fine balance of both going forward?
No, I think human interaction is absolutely key. The human touch is crucial. And I think hybrid is going to define how things are going to roll out, at least in the next few months. And I think some of these learnings will probably translate into us using technology better in live events as they open up as well. I think a classic example, and I take this example from Singapore, is what Marina Bay Sands has recently done with their live hybrid studio that they've launched at MBS. I think that's a fabulous example of a physical facility saying that we are now open, we are experimenting with technology as well with this hybrid solution. And maybe not everyone can travel to our events, not everyone's physically able to locate themselves where this event is happening, but we are able to take this event to you irrespective of whether you're at MBS because of capacity constraints or you're in any part of the world. And I think that's really how the future is going to define. You can't have a one size fits all solution. You have to find something that works for everyone. And the beauty is that technology allows us to adapt the solution to the need of the person, as long as we think about the client first and not just about our platform first. So it's really about maximizing and taking forward those human interactions and the human engagement through all formats.
Yes, and I'd like to go to Mr. Yogesh Mudras. And Mr. Mudras, you have been organizing virtual events across different sectors since the start of pandemic, be it IFSEC, be it your travel event, be it your jewelry event. So how have you been able to engage your audiences by the use of technology? And if you can give a kind of a case study or an example of maybe some client's testimonial or a response as to how he has evolved from your physical shows to your virtual shows, that would be of great insights to our audiences.
So in fact,
please unmute yourself, Mr. Mudras.
yeah, so just to let you know, when we in fact went into lockdown mode, when we in fact were working from home, in fact the first thing what we did was in fact do this survey. I think very rightly pointed by Richard when I spoke previously, was in fact the customer insights are very critical. What do your customers want? And in fact our customers did tell us that in fact because physical we don't see anything really happening in coming few months. I think if they are able to give us some options, we'll be definitely willing to look at it. And that's how we could come out with the solutions of starting the virtual shows. And for me, I think we have been growing, we have been learning, doing virtual shows across multiple platforms. And I think we grow by the day. I think very critically, I think Kiran did mention a very important point. In fact, let's keep in mind that even though things open up, they will open up gradually across the world in different geographies in a different manner. And in fact, in the near future, in fact, when you are doing an event, they are predominantly going to be very domestic in nature, because internationals wouldn't look at traveling to your shows. And what better way to have them involved in your events if you don't do hybrid. In fact, that is a great way of ensuring that the internationals still stay engaged with your events and in some form or the other. One more thing, I think for me, what really came up in fact is after doing this multiple virtual events across thing, I think the confidence starts growing within the team. So the last one that we did, we had about 50 exhibitors in our jewelry vertical, and that really meant a lot. And just for the 2-day show, we got about 6,000 visitors who came in and logged in, and we got a very positive response from the exhibitors because each of the booths saw at least a turnaround of at least 600 to 800 visitors. And what I could say is, let's look at a virtual event where the exhibitors' expectations or ROI expectations that we talk are not exactly in sync with what they talk in physical events. Because physical events, the amount of time and investment is huge. You have to physically travel to the event, you have to spend to build your stands, you take your travel, you take your teams to come over there, you do your own promotions. But in a digital event, the expectations are to an extent much limited, and it's more of a lead gen activity that they look at, trying to meet new customers, trying to make new leads for their business, and finally they got to do the rest of the thing to get it converted. But in physical event, in fact, you can understand the visitor is taking even more pain to travel physically, come out of his home or come out of his office to come and travel and see the event personally. And so that the level of interaction and ROI at a physical event is enormous. It is no comparison to a digital event. So we really shouldn't see whether a digital event could poach into my physical event. I think it's not a great way of looking at it, because I think they will all live in complementary to each other. In fact, we should look at a way where we can say that digital event will help me grow my physical event, because through this digital event or the hybrid model that we are talking of, you'll be able to reach to much wider audiences. You'll be reaching to much wider global audiences who may be converted and may be enticed to come and visit your physical event, either in form of exhibitor or visitor. So I think this is the way we are looking at it at Info Markets in India. And I believe this is why we are continuing with our engagement, I think offering something to our customers in this phase.
Thank you, Mr. Mudras, for your insights. And I'd like to move to Ms. Carla, and a very straightforward question to you, Carla. You've been a conventional person all your life, following traditional approach to physical events. How has been this transition? But the main question to you is, what, according to you, is the future of our industry?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Raghav. Yes, if you're talking about industries, we should not only look at our industry, we should also have a look at the industries which we represent in our trade fairs. And industries in general are specializing more and more. Market segments are developing quickly, and trade fair concepts have to realign accordingly. Despite of all the technical technologies, that means, to my understanding, both the trade fairs and the role of the organizers have to adapt or even change after the COVID pandemic, as soon as it comes to, I hope, a new normal again. And the future trade fair will mutate to unique industry platforms, not only showing products and showing companies. It should be a unique industry portal supporting exhibitors and visitors. For example, by offering knowledge about new developments, important insights, etc. Or providing the chance to meet the respective person for new encounters, really new encounters, not only the customers. And last but not least, those platforms or those portals should be understood as 365-day year-round industry portals arranged and used as multi-channel events, live and digital. This is, to my opinion, the change a trade fair has to adapt. And the organizers of the future, I know it's a little bit, it's a big change, but in the future, the organizers should become a catalyst for business beyond supply and demand, offering added value and new chances for everyone, for exhibitors, visitors, as well as for the organizer himself. They should also try to become more than just an organizer for a market platform. They should become a catalyst for business beyond supply and demand. And I think we all have to prepare a new status, and not only including digital solutions. Yes, they are important, but we have to look a little bit more ahead. Thank you so much.
Very well said, Carla. And I'd like to move to our last round, and I'd like to begin this last round with Mr. Chandraman Sharmani. It's called the quick fire round. So the question remains same for all the speakers, and they're all pinpointed answers. Mr. Mansharmani, you have to tell me 3 to 4 technical products or services or maybe innovations that will drive our future going ahead. According to you, they can be your personal opinion.
See, the first and the most important is the digital marketing. Now we are expanding our base through which we have been doing it earlier, but now the reach is to maybe much more than what we have been doing it earlier. That is one. And 2 other technologies which I have already mentioned about the registration management at the venue kind of a thing. It can be going digital kind of this thing. And then the other one is that now your experience at the airport, what technology, what we are using it. These are 3 things which I feel is going to help us in organizing the conferences in the future.
I'll slightly change my question to Mr. Mudras, and I'd like to understand his take on maybe 3 or 4 areas in which technology can help events going forward.
I think for me, I think the hybrid model is one thing which I definitely feel that it's here to stay. I think that's the number one for me, which as technology will help us enhancing our physical interface exhibitions by adding new exhibitors and visitors through hybrid models. So that's a way we can grow our business. The second thing, definitely, I think Chandraji did mention on digital marketing. I think we have our budgets which are focused more on ATL activities. I think that will get curtailed, and I think we will start conserving our budgets and becoming more digital focused in marketing. That's the very important thing. And third thing is about digital experiences, the enhancing the experience of our visitors and buyers through giving increased matchmaking, through understanding their requirements, using AR and VR to give them greater experiences when they actually come in, and even pre-event as well as post-event. So I think these are some things which I believe here will definitely come in years to come.
Thank you. Very well said. And Mr. Bhandari, over to you. 3 aspects where technology can help the MICE industry going ahead.
I think absolutely one very key area from my perspective is data. Measuring, collecting data and measuring the impact of all the stuff that we do. The engagement is I think the most crucial, and that's going to spread across different areas. The second, of course, is wherever we are able to add efficiency, right? So be it user management, be it contactless stuff that allows you to do things faster. I think that's going to be crucial as well. So wherever we can reduce touch points, increase efficiency, and measure impact is where technology is going to play a huge role for me.
Thank you. And Mr. Richard, what are your comments in this regard?
I think it's been said earlier, I think anything to do with customer insights and data. I think one thing that's probably long-term impact is as our exhibitors get more used to digital, they're going to expect more in a physical sense. They're going to expect more and greater level of customer insights, who's attending the show and what type of people attended the show. So I think as an industry, we need to get used to this whole customer insight thing, and any technology that can facilitate that will serve us better.
Thank you. Thank you for your useful comments. And finally, I'd like to invite Mr. Mark to give his concluding remarks as to the overall judgment in terms of where we are driving to, where is our future heading to, and how technology, all in all, can help us become a better and more evolved industry. Over to you, Mr. Mark, for your concluding remarks.
I get a different question. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure I can tie it all up neatly in a bow like that. I am optimistic about what technology can do to to help support and facilitate what face-to-face events do. So I'm enthusiastic about making matchmaking more efficient. Actually, anything that makes the sourcing process more efficient. So that's why I also like live streaming, because it allows you to do demonstrations, and the demonstrations allow the buyer to get a sense for the product more than they can through a static web page. And then ultimately, and this is much further technologically down the road, but I think the ability to eventually place orders, sort of echoing what Richard said much earlier, what are their objectives when they go to an event? For the most part at a B2B event, it's to source new products and place orders. So once we get there with the technology, once that supports it, it facilitates it in some way, then we'll be in a really exciting place.
From Asia Pacific, Americas and Europe, Ungerbok has been driving innovation and helping event organizations adapt to emerging trends. Our core values and beliefs help in supporting our growing community from all over the world to produce seamless and memorable experiences for all their attendees. As the world evolves, we evolve with it. Whether your event is in person, online or hybrid, Ungerbok technology and staff are here to support all of your global ambitions. Whether big or small, near or far, new or established, Ungerbok is the proven software solution to help manage your events, venues and exhibitions. We are continuously growing our international footprint, partnering with small, medium to large venues globally.
Hello, this is Balasubramanian from the Bangalore International Exhibition Center, India. We've been associated with Ungerbok since 2018, and since then it has been a great journey for us. We are using the Ungerbok venue management suite, which has helped us in enhancing our processes and also increasing the efficiency in the venue management space. We are the proud customers, first customers of Ungerbok in India, and we wish Ungerbok a great innings in India.
We have developed a range of educational platforms and tools to drive the success of your teams. Ungerbok users can expand their knowledge and belong to a community of global event professionals. Ungerbok certifications can help your staff take their career to the next level, earn industry recognition, and validate their skills to be top in the industry. The Ungerbok platform is built for events and thus removes unnecessary IT chaos around using multiple systems that don't integrate well with one another, delivering one unified platform that brings everything together efficiently, including data exchange with suppliers and partners. We want to help you raise the bar on adopting international standards within your organization. Be a part of our community that produces millions of events each and every year globally, whether in person or virtually. Ungerbok, partnering India.
We are social animals. Inherently, we like to gather and spend time with each other. Throughout history, we lived our lives within 10 to 20 miles of where we were born, staying close to family and familiar daily routine. As physical and social mobility increased, people with diverse backgrounds began to come together. We built large venues and created events that flourished: fairs and exhibitions, conferences and conventions, sporting events and corporate events, performances and festivals. Our gatherings became important places to inspire, share ideas, jumpstart innovation. Quickly, events became more complex and challenged organizers to meet heightened audience expectations. In 1985, Ungerbok had a vision to use technology to help people who bring people together, a vision for automating the processes of managing both venues and events. Soon, we became the world's event software, empowering the best venues and organizers around the world to become smarter and more efficient. Today, the vision is still alive and more important than ever, and our focus has grown stronger, evolving from efficiency to experience, from cost savings to value creation, from automation to digital transformation. Our venues and events are delivering heightened experiences as well. Real-time data flows seamlessly, driving collaboration and removing friction. Through digital signage, pop-up events, and reimagined spaces, and the blending of virtual and face-to-face events, We are witnessing heightened attendee engagement, and this is only the beginning. Ungerbach continues to lead the way by using technology to empower and engage. We remain steadfast in our vision of helping those who bring people together. We continue to fuel the digital transformation, and we are ready to be your partner. Let's get started.
A wonderful session full of great insights. And I must say, this has been one of the most focused sessions which we have had during our earlier sessions as compared to our earlier sessions. Well, with this, I'd like to thank all our esteemed speakers who have taken their precious time out to be a part of this useful panel discussion. And I'm sure our attendees from all over the world must have caused a lot of insights, and they will use these to further put it into practice in their businesses. And in case you have any queries, please do touch base with our speakers in our speaker lounge. With this, I'd like to finally conclude this wonderful session, and thank you very much for this great time that you have spent with us. Thank you.